Welcome, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to give it another couple of minutes while people's audio connect, and then we'll get started.
Great. So it looks like we're pretty good to go. We can get started, and then I'm sure we'll have people join us as we go. My name is Ross Yelsey. I'm an Assistant Director of Admission and Marketing at Columbia Journalism School. I'm really happy to have my colleagues, John Graham, Taryn Almanzar, Edwin Isaac, and David Hooker here to talk about various aspects of Columbia Journalism School with you today. I know that our deadlines are coming up for admissions. For the MS programs, our application due date is coming up this Monday, December 15th, and we have our MA application due on January 6th. And our dual degree in computer science and journalism due on January 15th. So there's a few days and a couple of weeks for people to still get their applications in. So we're really happy to talk about key aspects of the programs and the admissions process and financial aid with you today. And the way that we'll do the structure of the program is we'll talk first about the programs, then talk a bit about the application requirements, then scholarships and financial aid, and then we'll open it up towards the end for questions that you might have. And the way that you can do that is we'll turn on the chat function at the bottom. It's not on right now, but towards the last half hour, 15 minutes of the presentation, we will open that up and we will address questions that you put into the text there and take as many questions as we can at that point. So to begin, we'll talk a bit about our programs, and we'll start with the Master of Science program, our largest program and the one that we've had at the school since its inception. And to talk about that is my colleague, John Graham. So John, take it away, please.
All right, thanks so much, Ross, and thank you everyone for being with us today. So yes, the Master of Science program is really designed for anybody who may or may not have experience. These are for people who have a passion for journalism, but may not have, substantive professional experience yet. And the reason for that is that overall, the Master of Science is going to really give you a foundation in everything that you could possibly do in the field of journalism. So we start with a reporting module. We have writing modules, and then you'll build on those modules with multimedia techniques, investigative techniques, beat level reporting. There's a lot of options within each of the modules. And so you can really, cultivate a curriculum that meets your needs and your ambitions as a journalist. Within the MS, we have two specializations. There's a documentary specialization, obviously for people who want to be documentary film, journalists, and a Stabile investigative track, which is designed for those who want to do deep investigative pieces, specifically accountability reporting. We also have a part-time program, so people who are working professionals who want to attend part-time classes or at night and on weekends. And then we have two special degrees. We have a data degree in journalism program, which is basically journalism through the lens of data analytics. You learn how to scrape data, code, and find patterns in data sets that speak to larger systemic issues, and write about that in a journalistic fashion. We also have a dual degree program with the School of Engineering. It's a dual degree in computer science and journalism. And these are for individuals who want to build platforms, tools to make journalism more efficient, to enhance investigative techniques. And you also will graduate with a degree in computer science, so you could go on to do work in the tech industry. Some of our graduates from this program end up doing, working for companies when it comes to looking into different, social media feeds, spotting false information. So there's a lot of, opportunities for that particular dual degree. And we also have a plethora of dual degrees that you can do with the journalism school and other schools at Columbia, such as the School of International and Public Affairs or the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. And then we also have another dual degree with Sciences Po, which is a journalism program in Paris. So there's a lot of different options within that, but that is, in a nutshell, the Master of Science programs and the general curriculum.
Great, thanks, John. And I'll talk a bit about our Master of Arts program. And I know, depending where you are, you might have a lot of different programs in front of you that have Master of Science or Master of Arts as their name. And they're sometimes interchangeable in the sense that, some schools only offer an MA and some offer an MS. We offer two different degrees, and they have, slightly different names, Arts and Science. Science, as John explained, the Master of Science program is the broader program that's really a foundational skill building degree in journalism. It's for people who, as John said, don't necessarily have to have a lot of experience in journalism. And the Master of Arts differs differs in the sense that it is for people who do have experience in journalism. We look for people who have been in the field for around 3 years or more, but we do take people who have just been coming out of college, who have done really extensive work already in journalism, either through their campus publications or internships that they might have had over the summers, or other kind of leadership opportunities they've had, where they've had the chance to do really substantive reporting, the opportunity to write some really deep pieces that have a lot of sources, a lot of ambition in the work that they've already done. So that's what we look for in an MA applicant. And the MA program differs from the MS in the sense that it allows you to really focus on one of 4 key concentrations. There's arts and culture, business and economics, science, and politics. And you would choose one of those 4 tracks. And what you do, instead of in the MS doing a lot of broad kind of skill building, you narrow in more on learning how to report with a lot of depth and expertise in one of those subject areas. So you have a seminar where you have it in the fall and spring semesters, where you do a lot of different projects. You have a lot of visiting faculty from other departments at the school who help you build a real knowledge in those areas, whether it's arts, politics, science, or business, where you can ask a lot of deeper questions, ask more interesting questions, learn how to look for the right kind of experts, the right kind of studies to back up the stories that you're going to tell. And you also have the chance to do a master's thesis, which is a really ambitious piece of journalism you get to do with the with advisorship of one of our faculty members who's an expert in that area. And it's a chance to really push yourself further and really take your work to a new level. So that's what you get to do, is you kind of have the chance to have a year at Columbia where you're going to learn a lot about how to become an expert in a field, and also have the chance to produce a lot of work that you might not have had the chance to do before in your professional experience, and potentially have some pieces that you're going to be really proud of that can opens up some doors for you in the world of journalism and you graduate from the MA. So that's the MA in essence. And then I'll pass this over to my colleague Taryn to talk about the PhD in communications.
Thank you, Ross. But I would like to just take a very brief step back and just mention that the MA program is a full-time program. It's 9 months full-time. For the MS, the one that my colleague John mentioned, you have the option of completing that either as a full-timer or as a part-timer, except for the data degree, which is a full-time program. Having said that, PhD. The PhD is completely different from what my colleagues have discussed and mentioned. The PhD is not tailored towards students that want to go out in the field and do reporting. This is tailored towards students that want to study the relationship between people and the media. So for example, if you want to study women in communication, or the relationship between fake news and editors, or how layman normal people, quote unquote, are used during for the media. And so that relationship, that's what you will study in the PhD program. Usually students that complete the PhD either go into academic setting as professors teaching, they are focusing on research. So it's more of the study, again, of communication. It's multidisciplinary. So what it means is that you will be taking classes at the J School, but also within the Greater Columbia. Columbia University is this umbrella name. And within that umbrella, we have 17 schools. So you would be working with the faculty members and your advisor to tailor the program towards the area that you want to concentrate and do your research. The PhD program is usually completed between 7 to 10 years. The first 3 years, you're doing coursework, basically going to classes and just building the foundation that you will need in terms of knowledge and expertise in the areas and the research that you want to concentrate in. And then after that, you're working on your research and dissertation. Financial aid and scholarship aid for the PhD program, and this is critical for all of you to know, it's pretty standard. What that means is that for the first 6 years, we're going to be covering tuition, fees, maintenance, and facilities. And out of those 4 years, you will be receiving a living stipend. That's in a nutshell the PhD program. Students come in from all walks of life, all types of experiences. My recommendation is to go to our PhD website and concentrate on 2 links, the dissertations that our students have pursued, and also the student bios. Why do I tell you to go to those 2 links? It'll give you an insight and a window view of the kind of background that our students are coming in, and the kind of research that can be accomplished and done in the PhD program. With that said, I'll turn this over back to Ross.
Thanks, Darren. Now you've heard a little bit about the different programs we offer, and now the question is, if you're working right now on your application, or you're thinking of applying next year or in the future, what you have to do to submit your application. And so I'll pass this over to my colleague David Hooker, who will talk about the requirements for the applications for our different degree programs. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Ross. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Let's go over the application process. For those who have not started an application, everything is online. All you have to do is go to our website and create a profile, and then you'll be able to start an application and upload documents. So what we'll do is we'll go through the list of requirements and sort of what we're looking for. So first you'll notice that we do require transcripts. So we want to have transcripts from every university that you've attended. You upload it directly to the application at this point. It can be an unofficial copy. We will ask for official copies in the spring to come directly from your university once you are admitted and decide to enroll. But at this stage, you can just upload directly to the portal. International transcripts need to be, if they're not in English, you need to also make sure that you have an official translation accompanied with it. Just so you know, there's no minimum GPA requirement. We're looking at your transcripts because we want to look at your courses and the grades that you've taken. So there's no minimum GPA requirement. You also don't have to have, as Ross mentioned earlier, you don't have to have a bachelor's degree in journalism, or it's not required. We've admitted students from a wide variety of backgrounds, such as like business, law, science, math, music, you name it. So journalism is not a requirement for the MS program. As John mentioned with the MA program, we are looking for folks who have had some extensive experience with reporting. So just keep that in mind for that program. You have to have generally about 2 to 3 years of professional experience for that program. I think that's it for the transcripts. We do require 3 letters of recommendations. So just make sure that you're asking people who have supervised your work, whether it's academic or professional. Either of those cases are absolutely fine. We don't weigh one over the other. But we really want to make sure that it's folks that you have reported to directly and can talk about your writing ability, your attention to detail, how well you work with others, your ability to meet deadlines, your potential and skills as a journalist, and also as a graduate student. So those are types of things that we're looking for when reference letters. So make sure you're asking folks who can talk about those types of things. If you haven't spoken to your recommender in a while, maybe you graduated 3 or 4 years ago, just make sure that you've reached out to them prior to asking them, and make sure that they have the time to do it, and that also they're available to write a positive letter on your behalf. That's very important. Also make sure that you avoid asking relatives or friends or colleagues. You really want to ask someone who supervised your work. As far as tests, there's no GRE required for any of our master's programs. The PhD, we've made that optional this year, so it's not a requirement. If you're applying for either of our Master of Science programs, that test it's a writing test. It's 90 minutes. You can take that pretty much anywhere. The format is short answer, open-ended questions. There's no right or wrong answers. With that test, basically, we want to get a sense of how you write. We want to see how you write in a deadline situation. So it's a time test. We want to get a sense of your critical thinking and analytical skills. There's really no surprise element of the test. there's a sample test that's floating around like 10 years ago. Please ignore that. Please don't Google it, because it's really going to give you a lot of information that's just not accurate. Like there's a map, and there's asking about, who the House of Representatives are. Stuff like that's not on the test. It's more so about making sure that students are paying attention to the news and following current events. So, really we want to see if you're thinking as a journalist. That's what the test is all about. It's not to surprise you. It's very straightforward. Just make sure that you're keeping up with current events, big stories that have happened within the past year, that sort of thing, okay? For non-native speakers of English, we do require the TOEFL or IELTS exam. If you take the TOEFL, we're looking for a 114. The IELTS, we're looking for an 8.0. We're also accepting the home versions of both tests. Waivers are rarely granted, and we really only give that waiver for those that have completed their entire bachelor's degree in an English language university. That means that every class you've taken was taught in English. That means that every exam that you've taken was written in English. Those are the only requirements, or those are the requirements for anyone to receive a waiver based on your undergraduate degree. So that means if you've taken, if you did a master's in the US, that does not count. It has to be your bachelor's degree. The only way that we waive that requirement. Now onto the writing component of it. We take 3 written samples. It doesn't have to be published. It can be journalistic writing. It could be if you work for your student newspapers, and the articles that you can submit for that. You have a blog. You submit articles that you've written for your blog. It can be a research paper. It can be academic paper. Make sure that it's clear and concise. It should be your best work. There's a 15-page maximum. For those that have some journalistic experience already, maybe you have some clips, whether it's multimedia or audio or photography, you can submit that along with your application. The only requirement that we cannot overlook is that it cannot be something that you've written or worked on with a group. So if you're not the sole author of the work that's submitted, you will not be able to submit that for your written sample. And then the essays. So there's 2 required essays for all of our programs. The professional essay and the personal interest essay. This is where you get the opportunity to tell us your story. Use your voice. Think of this as you would, like if it was an interview. This is the opportunity where you get to sit down and write and basically make your case as to why the program, you feel the program is a good fit for you, and how you think that this program will help you get to the next level in your career. This is where you actually get to really emphasize how important journalism is to you. That's another big component of the application process. We'll look at your resume, we'll look at everything you submit and your transcripts and the writing test. This is where you get to really talk about your interest, your passion, your motivation. Why journalism? Why Columbia? These are things that you really want to hit on throughout the both essays, professional and the personal essay. Just make sure that when you are writing these essays, make sure that they're informative, they're well written, and reflective of your own voice. And there's an optional essay if you're applying for either of the specializations in the Master of Science program. So there's the investigative, documentary, or one of the 4 concentrations in the MA program. So if you're applying for any of those degree programs, then there's a 3rd essay which you have to complete to just go into detail about why you're pursuing that specific specialization or concentration. And I think I'll just close by reiterating what Ross mentioned earlier in the beginning. It's just make sure you're paying attention to the degree programs for each, because there's different. So the MS program, December 15th, PhD also December 15th. The MA program is January 6th. And the dual degree program, computer science, is January 15th. And that is through the engineering school.
All right, thank you, David. All right, and now we'll talk a bit about thinking financially about how to plan for a potential future at Columbia Journalism School. And I'll pass this over to my colleague, Edwin Isaac, to begin talking a bit about what you start thinking about when you're thinking about financing and education.
Thank you, Ross. So I'll talk about some forms of financial aid, and then Assistant Dean Almanzar will actually talk to you about institutional scholarship aid. But first, before we talk about aid, you have to know your costs. I would suggest you all go to our website and review the different costs for the specific programs you're considering applying to. But generally, right now, the Master of Science full-time, the tuition and fees is about $80,000. The data program is about $120,000. The part-time program, which goes across 2 academic years, is about $90,000. So that's more than the full-time program. Our dual degree program with computer science, which is 2 academic years, is about, it will be about $170,000, and our MA program will be about $75,000. That's just tuition and fees. So they're just rough estimates for you, what we can expect for next year. The actual costs for the degree programs will be finalized by the trustees of the university by the end of June, but our estimates are have been pretty accurate every year. So taking that into account, you would also need to consider your living expenses. We also do estimates for that, which you can also see on our website. You have to think about what it'll cost for you to live here, to eat every once in a while, to think about your personal expenses. And our estimate for that is roughly about $4,000 a month. I'm sure anyone can live in New York City for less than $4,000 a month, and I'm certainly sure you can live in New York City for more than $4,000 a month. So it's up to you how you choose to live. You can live like a college student, or you can enjoy the finest and the best that New York has to offer. But that's it's up to you how you choose to live in New York. But we estimate with about using about a $1,300 to $1,400 monthly rental cost, that all your other expenses included, between about $3,500 and $4,000 per month. Now let's go to the aid. The federal government offers multiple loans for citizens and permanent residents of the country. You're considered an independent student by the federal government. You can borrow an unsubsidized loan for a maximum of $20,500. And then if you would like to borrow beyond that $20,500, you could borrow what's called a graduate plus loan. And you can borrow up to the cost of attendance minus any other aid that you've received. Excuse me. So for example, let's just say, for example, the cost of attendance, which includes tuition and fees and your living expenses, is let's just say it's $100,000, and you use the unsubsidized loan for $20,000. You could take it out the plus loan for the remaining $80,000 if you would like to. You don't obviously have to, but that's something that you would be eligible to borrow as a citizen or permanent resident. And obviously, if you complete all of the other requirements that are necessary, which I'll go through very quickly. Some things to think about for federal loans is the interest rate. Right now, the unsubsidized loan is at a pretty low interest rate historically. It's at 4.3%, and the plus loan is at 5.3%. But for you all who are applying, and those of you who are admitted, would start in August, there will be a new interest rate which will come into effect starting in July. I don't know that interest rate yet. It's not been established yet. The government will establish that interest rate around June. And those of you who are admitted, will let you know what the new interest rates will be. As far as the requirements for the federal loan, you just have to complete a FAFSA, obviously be a citizen or a permanent resident. Don't be in defaults of any of your loans. If you are borrowing undergraduate, or if you have borrowed loans for your undergraduate years, make sure those are in good standing. It takes about a half a year to get those out of default or to be able to borrow if you are in default. So make sure you are your record or your credit and your loan history is just clean. You want to just take a look at that. There's some other requirements as well, but not really necessary to discuss at this moment in time. A similar type of loan for international students and also open to American citizens as well and permanent residents is private loans. I would just say, well, first of all, for international students, you'll most likely will need a cosigner who lives in the United States of America if you want a private loan. And after that or beyond that, it operates somewhat similar to a plus loan in that you can borrow up to your cost of attendance minus any other aid that you've received. I would just say take a look at the interest rate, be able to compare the interest rates, private versus federal, see if it's going to be fixed or variable. One of the main differences with federal and private loans are the repayment plan options. You want to see what your repayment plan options are for a private loan, whereas with the federal government, they offer several repayment plan options. One of the main ones is tied to the amount of income that you are actually earning. Okay, so those are the two different loan options that everyone has, and then just for international students would be the private loans. Second form of aid is scholarships. Outside scholarships is something that you should all be taking a look at now. We have a database on our website of outside scholarships, which we have aggregated. I would suggest taking a look at that. The calendar, or shall I say the deadline for these outside scholarships don't necessarily align with like the academic calendar. So there may be some scholarships available now which have deadlines which are approaching. So I would suggest going to our website and getting that database and just seeing what you would be eligible to apply to once it becomes available, and make yourself your own little spreadsheet, put down the deadlines, and just stay on top of that. And I would also suggest obviously doing your own Google search or whichever search engine you would like to use and search for different outside scholarships. Go to different schools, go to different graduate schools, go to different journalism schools, go to the financial aid pages and just look for see if they have a database of outside scholarships and just apply to as many as you possibly can. The free money's out there. You just have to take the time to apply to these scholarships. And now I'll turn it over to Assistant Dean Almanzar to talk about institutional scholarship.
Thank you, Edwin. Unlike outside scholarship, the ones that are offered by the J School have specific eligibility requirements, and we do require a scholarship aid application, which is available. I would just say, even if you think you may not qualify for scholarship aid, I would say take the time to fill it out, because in order for us to evaluate and see if you're eligible for any scholarship funding, we need you to submit. And if you walk away with anything of what I've just said or I'm going to say, hit submit. I cannot tell you how many students or applicants start the application and do not hit that submit button. I should take a step back and just clarify and verify that admissions to the school is need blind. What that means is that we will not take a look at your financial wherewithal or lack thereof in order for us to make the admissions decision. The admissions decision is completely separate from the scholarship evaluation that we have. When you look at the scholarship application, it may look a little bit intimidating because it has a lot of sections, but the way to approach it is that these questions are about you, and who knows themselves better than you. It's going to ask about your income, your expenses for 2020. If you were supported by your parents or anyone else, just writing zeros. It's going to ask for what kind of journalism you have covered, what kind of journalism you would like to do once you're done with the program. It's going to ask for a bio. So again, there's nothing there that should be intimidating, although when you look at the sections, you're like, oh my God, I just can't do this. That's not the case. Look through it. if you have any questions, reach out to us. We are here to answer them and to walk you through the process. The deadline for the scholarship application is January 15th, so you have time to complete that. In terms of the amounts that are awarded, it all depends on the scholarship availability that we have. But if you go to our website, we offer there the median scholarship that we were able to offer per program in this last academic year. So with that said, I'll turn this back to my colleague Ross.
Thank you, Taryn. So what I'm going to do now, everyone, is I'm going to turn on the chat here at the bottom of your Zoom, so you can now put any questions you have for us in there, and we'll try to address as many that are kind of applicable to everyone. If it's very specific, we might ask to follow up with you later. But if you have general questions, we'd love to take as many as we can right now, and feel welcome to start typing away. In the meantime, I'll ask a question I think we've gotten before to my colleague David about recommendation letters and transcripts in terms of when the latest we'll accept those, even though our actual application due dates are December 15th for the MS and PhD and January 6th for the MA.
Sure, good question. So think of this as everything that you can submit on the application, everything that you have control over, the essays, all the questions that are in the actual application, everything that you can complete, all of that is due on the specific deadlines, December 15th for the MS PhD, January 6th for the MA. But we do give extensions for materials that you have no control over. So recommendation letters, obviously that's out of your control. So we give everyone the opportunity to get that in by January 10th. And that's the same for if you're taking the TOEFL or IELTS exam, that can also come in January 10th. If for some reason you don't have your transcripts and it has to be sent by the university, same thing, January 10th. So everything that you have control over has to meet the application deadline. Otherwise, we have the January 10th as the deadline for outside materials.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, David. And then a couple questions about the application, specifically about the autobiographical essay that we require. Someone is asking, how centered should that be on journalism? I mean, it's kind of a big prompt. You can write about yourself. What would my colleagues say about, whether that needs to be specifically about journalism in that essay?
I would say we're not able to interview each and every single one of you. So with the autobiography, that's the opportunity for us to know who you are. So any insight that you would like to give us about your personal trajectory, that's the opportunity to do that. I don't know if my colleagues want to add anything else, but that has been my approach, because we have the professional essay where you can delve into why you're pursuing journalism, why you're coming into the J School. But the autobiography, at least when I'm reviewing applications, I'm looking to see who you are as a person, and just to get a window view into your life.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Taryn. I think that covers it well for me. We had a question from someone who's applying to one of our MA program concentrations and is wondering, if they mark this box, which is in the MA application, if you want to be considered also for the MS, if our committee feels you're a better fit for that program, should you write your essays in that application specifically for the MA program you're wanting to apply to? And I would say yes. You're trying to, explain if you're applying to a specialization in the MS or an MA concentration, your objective is really to write about why you want to apply to the program you're targeted on at that point. And if our committee feels that you're a better fit for maybe the broader MS program, they would then put you into that program. But I would focus really on the program you want to get into when you're applying in the essays, and making a good case for why that is the best fit for you.
And I'll also just jump in and just say, if you're applying for the MA program and you check off that you want to be considered for the MS, we're going to first evaluate your application on the basis for the MA program. So definitely make sure that all your essays and everything you write about in the application shows that. But the committee will make that decision afterwards. So we always look at the application first based on the MA program. And if we feel that you have, that the MS program is more aligned or is a better fit, then we'll go back and reevaluate it. So absolutely.
Thanks, David. And we have another question. I know, David, you talked a bit about the writing exam, writing test already. Someone just wanted to know a little bit more in detail what they should expect in terms of what the format will be like, and how that that will work.
Sure. The format is, again, it's open essay questions. It's really a sense of us sort of just getting a sense of how you write in a time situation. So think of it as you're working in a news organization and you're given an assignment and you have a deadline. That's basically how the writing test is crafted. Because, you know, we feel that all the essays and everything that you're going to submit, you've had lots of opportunities to edit it. You've probably had someone, a mentor or someone that, you know, take a look at everything that you submitted. The writing test is just you in a time situation, you know, pretty much giving us a glimpse of how you think as a journalist. Like I said, the questions are, they're not gotcha questions. The types of questions that you'll see is really going to be, you know, current events, questions that have to deal with reporting and writing as a journalist. So that's the type of questions you can sort of get a sense of what the test is going to cover. It's, you know, once you take the test, you'll see it's really straightforward. There's no tricky questions, but it's open-ended. It's short answer. I think that's pretty much it.
Thanks, David. And then we had another question about the MA and the MS that I can take. This person is asking, you know, would it be unusual to apply to both the MA and the MS, like in separate applications? I would say we don't recommend doing that. If you know, they're very different programs, kind of in the sense of what you would get out of them. So if you look them over and you feel like one of them is really what you'd want to do, and if it is the MA, then you can mark the box that David explained that says that you'd like to be considered for the MS if our committee feels you're a better fit for the MS. But if you really want to go into the MA, I recommend applying just to that program. You can be potentially accepted to the MS if our committee feels you're a better fit for it. But if you're looking at both programs and you really want to get the skills that the MS provides, you feel like that's probably better for you, then I would just apply to the MS. But don't apply to two separate programs and two separate applications. I would really look them over, and really you can talk to us too if you'd like to, but to figure out what the best potential fit would be for you before you apply. Another question for financial aid about what is the earliest you can submit the FAFSA? This person's just wondering that.
The FAFSA is available now. You go ahead and work on that right now.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Edwin. And then a question about whether people beyond the admissions committee look at the autobiographical essays. The answer is no, really the entire application is really just reviewed by our admissions committee. It doesn't really go beyond that. You know, it's all between the applicant and the admissions committee, your materials, and that's it. Let's see. And then a question, I guess, David, someone's wondering about transcripts again, about whether, I think we've gone over this, but just to tell people again if they need to have an official transcript to apply, or whether a copy will do for the application process itself.
Sure. For now, you can just submit or just upload a copy of your transcript. We will ask for an official transcript that comes directly from your university in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
But for right now, there's a prompt on the application under the education section where you can just upload a copy that you already have.
Mm-hmm. Great. We had a question. I know John had mentioned earlier the dual degree possibility with Sciences Po in Paris. Would somebody be able to tell us a little bit about how that process works if someone wanted to potentially become involved with that program once they're at the journalism school?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So basically, if you're at the journalism school, at some point during the fall semester, the students will be invited to apply for the dual degree program with Sciences Po. It's a much more curated and tailored admissions process. It's not as open as, let's say, a dual degree with like SIPA or something like that. Essentially, you will be invited to submit an application. You will submit the required materials that Sciences Po needs to review, and then there will be an interview process. And basically they will let you know if you've been admitted. And then at that point, you'll finish out your year at Columbia Journalism School, and then you'll do a second year at Sciences Po. And essentially that will allow you to have not only the master's from us, but the master's from Sciences Po, because they're a 2-year program and they accept all of our credits as part of meeting their required courses. And so that process, it's much more internal. It's not open to the public. It's not something you apply to directly. It's once you're a student here, then you can submit an application for that once invitations become available.
Thanks, John. And we had a question from someone who's interested in how we evaluate applications for our specialized MS programs, the investigative or the documentary. Specifically, this person's wondering, like, if you are applying to the documentary specialization, is it necessary that you have to have like video clips or show that you already have skills in that format to be a viable candidate for the program?
I can answer that too. So, whenever you're applying to a specialization, you're going to submit a specialization essay, and that's really where you can do the heavy lifting and explain to us why you want to be that kind of journalist, why you want to be a documentary filmmaker, why you want to be an investigative journalist. I would say for the documentary program, they're much more interested in your storytelling ability than they are with your technical ability. They can teach you that, but they want to know that you know how to tell a story. That is something that's a little harder to teach. And so they want to know that you understand what makes a character compelling, how to elicit rich narratives, what is the arc of the story, because that's really the point of a documentary program in a journalism school. It's that it's driven by the story. You can make a beautiful film that's technically, advanced and visually compelling, but maybe the story is just not there. And that's something that we really stress in our program, is that you're telling a story. And so they will teach you those technical skills. So they're much more interested in that and some of the journalistic experience that you have rather than advanced film techniques. They'll be able to teach you that.
Great, thanks, John. And a question again about transcripts again. One about if someone's like, completing their fall semester right now and they don't have their grades yet, should they wait until those are ready? And how should they do that if they don't have them prepared at this point, like a transcript that reflects their fall work up to date?
Sure.
Recommend.
In that case, I would say you can go ahead and just upload the latest transcript that you currently have on your application. And then once the updated transcript is available, just get back in touch with us. Just email us and include the updated transcript, and we'll go ahead and update your application with the new transcript. So go ahead and put in what you have right now. And then once you have the new updated transcript, just get back in touch with us and we'll update it for you.
And I'll just follow up that, we know a lot of undergraduates are going to be completing their undergraduate schooling. So many of you won't have completed transcripts, and that's totally fine. We'll review what you have. Then should you be admitted, that's when we need an official copy that indicates that you have completed your undergraduate degree with your final grades that comes directly from the school. So that's the process for students who are completing their schooling right now.
Great, thanks. And another question about transcripts. This is someone who I guess took some college credit classes while they were in high school. They were taking classes maybe at a local university. They were actually going to their high school transcript, not to the college transcript. And would they need to submit the grades from that if it's stuff that you did before you actually went to college?
I would say no, because I would imagine that the university transcript would most likely have some sort of transfer credit indicated on there. So that would be housed within there. I would say that overall, as long as your university transcript indicates that you had fulfilled certain prerequisites or something like that, we wouldn't need to know that you took college level courses in high school. We really just want to see your final transcript. I would say the only time that deviates from that is when you studied abroad and you have during your undergraduate career, you went to another institution and you have a separate transcript. And those grades are not located on your transcript that your home university has, then we need those copies as well. But anything that you did pre-college, that's not something that we need. It's most likely indicated on your transcript that you had transfer credits, or that you tested into a higher level math or writing course.
Thanks, John. And then a big question that we always get that I'll ask my colleague Taryn. What is the most important criteria for getting a scholarship from Columbia Journalism School? What are we looking for? And what makes a successful scholarship applicant?
It all depends on what the scholarship eligibility requirement are or is. just to explain, unlike undergraduates school, where the federal government has, the Pell Grant or scholarships that have no eligibility requirements attached to it, and it's really up to the school to allocate the funds. That's not the way that it works at the J School. Every single penny that we give out, it's based on eligibility requirements that are attached to those funds. So the first thing we're looking for is if the applicant, admitted student, fits that eligibility requirement. So for example, there is a scholarship for someone who is interested in studying a foreign language and going back to whatever home country that foreign language pertains to. So if we have more than one student that qualifies for that, then we will start looking at financial need as determined by the scholarship aid application and academic merit as established by the admissions committee. So all of that to say, fill out the scholarship application with as much information as you can. Make sure that it's cohesive, make sure that it's consistent with all of the information that you have provided in terms of your bio and your essays. What do I mean by that? Going back to the foreign language, if this is something that you want to apply for, make sure that that's what you're telling us. Make sure that you are clear in saying, I want to go abroad and do international reporting, because that needs to tie into the scholarship. So again, fill out the application with your information. Make sure that it is telling a cohesive story. Ross?
So then a question about, for someone who's applying, apparently an international student, looking at kind of what percentage of international students often who apply for scholarship do receive one? Do we have any sense of that?
There is not a specific percentage because again, we don't have how can I explain this? It's not as though we're not going to be considering international students for scholarship, or we're only going to be allocating funds to domestic students. Do we have scholarships that are specific to international students? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that those scholarships are the only ones that international students will be considered for. So for example, we have one that it's the Pulitzer Africa. Do we consider students who are residents of Africa for that? Absolutely. Does that preclude them from the other scholarships? Absolutely not. So the percentage of international students changes from year to year. It all depends how many students, again, hit that submit button on the scholarship aid application. So there is not a hard and fast rule or percentage, I should say, when it comes to the breakdown between international and domestic students.
Great, thanks, Darren. And a question about, this is someone who is interested in doing visual journalism in the MS program. They're wondering, in the application, can they submit just multimedia samples, like visual samples, or should they also have written samples as part of their application when they're applying for the program?
I would say you should have at least one writing sample, preferably two. That element is really important. Even if you want to do multimedia journalism, we really pride ourselves on the ability to teach students how to tell a compelling story. And so we want to see that in a number of different examples. And so our faculty reviewers, the admissions reviewers, they do prefer one multimedia clip and two written samples. We're happy with, two multimedias and one written if that's really your area of expertise, but we highly recommend at least one writing clip, even if your goal in life is to really just do multimedia kind of journalism.
Thanks, John. And a question I actually got in advance of this is kind of another big question. It's for people who are applying to our MS program, and as we've talked about, it can be open to people who have not been doing journalism before and are trying to make a change and going into this new profession. But what should make an application stand out if you are someone who's not maybe having a lot of samples, a lot of experience in the profession already?
I mean, I think you can do, I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
No, you go ahead, John.
Okay. When students ask that in information sessions, I always tell them they can do the heavy lifting in their essays. You can really speak about passion in those essays. You can really speak about what you're doing right now professionally and how those are transferable skills to the world of journalism. Lawyers know how to do research, they understand the law, they understand investigative techniques, and there's a lot of fields like that. Sociology majors, they really understand society, people, they want to get to the root of societal issues. There's a lot of different topics and subjects that people are interested in that are very transferable skills. So you can talk about that and why you feel like those are really good qualities for a journalist and how you'll be able to employ those in your work as a journalist. And then for the clips, we accept academic pieces if those are all you have. We accept pieces from blogs if you've written about things in topical events or anything, or if you're giving your take on some sort of element of current affairs. Those are things we get to see some insight into your writing. And you can also take a shot at just writing something in a journalistic style. It doesn't need to be published. We love seeing that students have taken it upon themselves to kind of give it a try and write something that's journalistic in nature. So that's also something that can really help your application stand out. But like I said, for the MS, it's not required to have experience. You can definitely explain to us in your essays why this is the field for you.
John, that was really great. So pay attention to what he just said, because he just gave you a window view into the admissions committee and how we review it. I will just piggyback and say this for all of the programs, not only for MS. When you are crafting, especially the professional essay, if you want to think about it in 3 sections, where you're at right now, your background, your experience, the skill sets, where you would like to be in the future, meaning career-wise, and what are the gaps that you have to get you there, and how does the journalism school, Columbia Journalism School, fits into filling up those gaps. So whether you're coming in with professional journalism, professional experience, or you're not, those are the key things that you need to highlight for any of the programs that you're applying to. So in essence, you are taking an honest assessment of where you are now in terms of your career, where you would like to go, and how does the program fit into your overall goals. Ross?
Thanks, Darren. That's a big picture answer. And now I have a smaller kind of scale question, again, based on our conversation about the multimedia clips. This person's wondering, if they have 3 good writing samples, could they add an additional multimedia clip in addition to that, or should they only have 3 samples total of work? So like 2 written samples and 1 multimedia clip, or could you have 4, 3 writing samples and 1 multimedia clip they want to add in there too to show off another skill set?
I would say submit 3, and one of them you can always direct us to a website. And the reason I say that is because we will be reviewing a lot of applications, and we will be reading a lot of material. We do read everything. We really do a very holistic review. So I just don't think we'll be able to get to 4 clips. So show us your best 3. If we're curious, we'll look at your website and see some more of the work that you've done. But I would really just pick your favorite 3 clips that you've got that you feel really represent your work, and lead with those.
Thanks, John. And a question on transcripts again from someone from another country who says that it's unlikely they can get that transcript translated into English. What should they do about that? David, do you have any advice for people who are in foreign language institutions?
Sure. We recommend getting an official translation service. You can also contact Wes. They'll be able to do that evaluation and also do a course by course evaluation. So yeah, you can always reach out to Wes, send them your transcript, and they will do the evaluation for us and send it directly to us.
Thanks, David. And as we wait for more questions, I know something I meant to bring up at the beginning of the session, but forgot about, was to talk just briefly about how the school is navigating the COVID situation right now. We've been dealing with this since the beginning of our academic year, throughout 2020. And we've been able to offer for our MS program, MA program, PhD program, hybrid instruction. So all of our students are in the city, or most of our students are in the city. They are taking classes in person in smaller seminar sizes. We reduced our class sizes to accommodate the kind of social distancing requirements that the public health authorities have advised. And so we're having our reporting groups meet together for the MS. We're having our concentration seminars in the MA meeting together. Several other classes involving, cameras and sound equipment. We're having people use that equipment in person, going out and reporting using that. And then when there's larger classes or classes that it feels like we can offer in a online format instead, we've been doing that virtually. So there's a mix. And so we're going to see what the future will bring for the next academic year. We will hoping that a vaccine will be out and available to people all over the world. But if we're going along with the program we have now, we're definitely offering the in-person instruction as a key component of our degree programs. So I'd expect to be in New York studying if you are planning to apply for this year. Great. Any other, let's see, any other thoughts about that from anyone?
Can we just talk a little bit about the environment? I know that's usually one of the questions, and John, jump in, and Ross and everybody else. Just about the environment when you walk in through Pulitzer Hall or when you start the program, where most students think that it's a very competitive environment where you're competing with the person next to you. And that's not the case. The journalism school is very much about building connections, about networking, and that begins with your classmates. What that means is that you work in it very much alongside one another. We have workshops and guest speakers that are coming into the field. We have alumni who are tied into the school and just share their knowledge and the tips on how to navigate this world or on your reporting. So what it means, for example, if I'm really great at interviewing, but my camera skills are not up to par, but one of my colleagues, let's say John, is really great at the videos and editing, but not so much at the interviewing, we'll work together. And he'll help me out and I'll help him out. So you're not competing with the person next to you, you are competing with yourself. And that is reflected even in the grades. We have no grades, it's either pass or fail, which sounds great, but it's very challenging because you're receiving individual feedback from your professors, and they're expecting you to institute that feedback right away into your next story. So it's a great culture that you would be walking into, and you're building connections for life.
That's a great point, Taryn. Thanks. We have a question now. This is a good question from an international student. This applies to both US citizens and international students about what happens with health insurance if you're accepted to Columbia Journalism School. What's provided for you?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Oh, no problems. But for full-time students, all full-time students will have to have medical insurance. And so if you are a citizen or international student, you will be given medical insurance by the university, and then you will have the opportunity to opt out if you have something that is sufficient. But for the most part, for international students, you'll just take the medical insurance that's offered through the university. You can read more about the details about that on the Health Services website. And just so you know that the medical insurance will cover you. This is it's pretty rough estimate here, but usually it's like from August 15th of one year to the following August 14th. So a full calendar year, the medical insurance will cover you. That is offered by the university. Through the university, shall I say.
Thanks, Edwin. And in addition to that, I know a question we often get also is about the housing situation. If you're accepted and you need to think about where you're going to live, whether you're international or a domestic student, how does Columbia help you plan ahead for that?
So we do offer housing through the university. It's limited. There's just a certain number of slots. So what we recommend for the students to do is to submit the application that is for Columbia Housing, but also to do your own search for apartments, for availability. You may also want to look at the International House, which is a couple of blocks away from Columbia. They offer housing to a couple of graduate schools within New York City. So look into that. And they have financial aid. They offer scholarship funding. They can offer anything from a no-frills dorm-like accommodation to a studio to 1 bedroom. So make sure you look into that. We also have, once you're admitted, we create a Facebook page, which is very helpful because the students help one another in terms of searching for housing. Sometimes someone is here in New York, they already have an apartment, and they have 2 rooms, a room available, and they'll post that there as well. As you're doing your search, make sure that whatever it is that you're thinking or contemplating, it's about maybe 45 minutes or less from the J School. That's our recommendation. And the time to start looking at that, just like your financial aid planning, is now.
Thanks, Taryn. And another important question we got about when do people hear about admissions decisions from the school? So we talked about our deadlines for applying. So people should expect to hear from us in mid-March with our admissions decisions, and within maybe a couple days after that, if you apply for scholarship, we'll have a scholarship financial aid decision you'll receive too, so you'll know both whether you were admitted and if you are, what potential financial aid package Columbia could provide for you. And then you have till May 1st usually to decide on whether you'd accept our offer of admission. So you have about a month and a half. We'll have events for admitted students to kind of talk over and think through that decision as well. And then a question about the admissions fee for school. I think this is someone addressed this in the text already, but for people wondering, when do you have to submit that $100 fee for the admission? Is that right when you're submitting your application? How does that work?
There you go. So you actually submit your application, and then the prompt comes after you submit your application. I think I'm reading a question where it might be a day or 2 later. That's okay. As long as you submit your application, which is first, you can go back to the portal and submit the application fee.
Great. And sometimes we get questions. I haven't gotten a question in the chat today, but from people in the past about is there any waiver for that fee, or is that always required for us?
Unfortunately, the application fee is not, we don't have a waiver for it. So that is going to be required for us.
Great. Thanks, David. Let's see. I think that is it for questions. Please, if you have any more, put those in the chat. I think our Associate Dean of Admission and Financial Aid, Christine Souders, is here. If you'd like to just introduce yourself, Christine, to the people here, that'd be great.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Christine Souders. And I work with all of my admissions colleagues who you have already met, and just want to say we're delighted that you're with us today for this meeting, and we look forward to reading your applications.
Great. Thanks, Christine. I don't see any more questions at this point, so we're always happy to take more questions in the future if they pop up with your application, if they're very specific to your situation. I'll put the email address for that here. It's apply.journalism@columbia.edu. Oh, here's one more question. Actually, as we were wrapping up, this is a financial aid question again from someone asking, do we need to be an independent by the time? Do we need to be an independent by the time of application for financial aid? How do we view our applications for financial aid and for the school? Is it, are people seen as an independent? Is that correct? Taryn or Edwin?
That's for Taryn. I think it's a scholarship question, it sounds like.
Okay, sure. Yes. You're independent. As soon as you are applying to graduate school, let that be through the scholarship aid application. Do not include your parents' information. The same thing for those who will be submitting the free application for federal student aid. You are considered independent. So yes, even for those of you who are completing undergraduate program right now, when you submit, again, the scholarship aid application for the J School and the FAFSA, you are going to mark yourself as independent.
Thank you, Taryn. And then a question about whether we're going to have more webinars like this one. This is really the end of our season as we're wrapping up towards the application date. So this is kind of the end of our live webinars. As I mentioned, you're welcome to chat with us on apply.journalism@columbia.edu with any other questions. But in the chat right now, I'm going to put the link. This is a page that has all of the videos of all the past events we've had. So we've had quite a range of events. We've had comprehensive events, 3 of those over the fall that go over all aspects and have faculty and alumni and career development people in the discussion, as well as programmatic videos about each of our individual programs. That includes the MS in data journalism, the dual degree with computer science, and all the MA programs, all the concentrations. So you can look through there and you can find the links and watch those on YouTube. And there's a lot of more detail that our faculty and alumni will talk about in those too, to give you a better sense on the different programs as you apply. And before we go, I'll just put on a share screen in a second of the due dates. Again, I know we've gone over those a couple times, but just because it is coming to that time of year, I will share that too, just so you get one last sense of it. Let me just do that 1 second. So here you can see our due dates. I'll just put the share here. Oops. So you can see, 1 second, having a little slow computer day. 1 second there. Oh, oops, wrong thing. Bear with me 1 second. Present. There we go. So the application for admission, as we've talked about for the MS programs, that's all the MS programs that John had talked about, the part-time, the full-time, the investigative and documentary specializations. Those are all due December 15th, as is the MS in data journalism. And the PhD in communications application is also due December 15th. So coming up pretty fast. Certainly have time to get those essays together. And as David mentioned also, you have till January 10th to have people submit their recommendation letters and all the transcripts for that. So in case they're busy finishing up their semester and the end of the year, they have a few more weeks to get those materials in. But everything that you have control over, your essays, your work samples, everything else, you need to submit all of that and the fee by December 15th. And for the Master of Arts program, and that's for the 4 concentrations for that, arts and culture, business and economics, science and politics. The deadline to submit the application for that is January 6th. So you have a few more weeks to work on that. And also the recommendation letters and the transcripts for that would also be due January 10th at the latest. And it's January 15th is the deadline for the application for the dual MS in journalism and computer science. So that is further out a little bit, but you can apply through that through the School of Engineering website, not through the Journalism School website if you're interested in that program. And January 15th also, it's a lot of dates that we have on here, is also the due date for the submission of the scholarship aid application, which Taryn talked about as well. So if you're applying for scholarship, you need to have all the information uploaded, all of the material there, and submit that document to us by January 15th. So those are the upcoming dates. We hope you'll be submitting for our various programs in the next few days and weeks for these programs, and we're happy to keep in touch at apply.journalism@columbia.edu if you have questions as you're completing your various applications for us. So thank you again for joining us today. And thank my colleagues too for showing up and answering all these great questions that you've had. And we look forward to keeping in touch. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.